It is great news for Hindus and Buddhists in India. In just 2 months, they will be able to trek to Mount Kailash from the Indian territory.
Rising from the Tibetan plateau, Mount Kailash looks almost too perfect to be natural. A geometric marvel shrouded in ancient reverence and modern mystery. What if this sacred mountain isn't just untouchable in a spiritual sense, but actively resists human intrusion in ways science struggles to explain? Strange disturbances with compasses, drones, and even pilots hint at more than just bad weather or magnetic anomalies. Time itself seems to behave oddly, while the landscape around Kailash challenges the very idea of reality with shifting paths and contrasting lakes. Unclimbable and unyielding. Mount Kailash is unlike any other mountain when it comes to human attempts at ascent. Unlike peaks that stop climbers due to technical difficulty, altitude, or weather, Kailash seems to resist climbing in an entirely different way. Those who try to approach describe an almost intangible force pushing back against them, something that no physical preparation or equipment can overcome. This resistance isn't about fear, but a profound sense that the mountain itself is setting boundaries. One of the earliest mountaineers to speak openly about this was Hugh Rutledge, who studied Kailash in 1926 and declared it utterly unclimbable. His years of experience on brutal remote mountains gave weight to his conviction. He was not deterred by the usual obstacles of climbing, but by a deeper message that the mountain was meant to remain unconquered. Rutledge's account set a tone that persists in nearly every report ever since. In 2001, a rare permit was granted to a Spanish climbing team, raising hopes that Kailash might finally yield to human skill. However, the expedition was abruptly aborted. The climbers experienced hallucinations, sudden illness, and an overwhelming, inexplicable fear that forced them to retreat before even reaching the climb itself. It was a mysterious psychological barrier that no amount of training could surmount. Other, more subtle accounts deepen the mystery. A scientific team once considered an ascent, but was warned by a Tibetan Lama to abandon the attempt. They heeded the warning and returned home. But tragically, within a couple of years, every member of that group had died under circumstances never fully explained. Such stories amplify the sense that Kailash has its own will, one that punishes disregard. Russian climber Sergei Chisakov described his encounter with Kailash in deeply personal terms. Although physically adjusting to the altitude as expected, he felt something was profoundly wrong mentally. His heart raced for no reason, and a single thought echoed in his mind: he did not belong there. It was only when he turned back that the sense of reprieve came, as though Kailash had rejected him but allowed release through retreat. What sets Kailash apart is how people respond to approaching it. Panic is rare. Instead, those who turn away do so with clarity and calm. It is as if the mountain communicates not through chaos, but through a quiet, inscrutable consent. The decision to abandon the climb feels less like failure and more like permission granted by the mountain itself. Visitors often describe their focus narrowing, looping through fear and doubt until the path forward simply closes. There is no dramatic disaster, no equipment failure or rockfall that forces them back. Instead, retreat becomes an internal, inevitable conclusion. It is a powerful psychological phenomenon consistently reported across decades and cultures. This mysterious resistance is the mountain's first enigma, a barrier that fascinates and frustrates. It suggests that Kailash is more than granite and ice. It is a boundary to something unseen, demanding respect rather than conquest. But this is only the beginning of what makes the mountain so profoundly strange. Beyond psychological resistance, the mountain's influence reaches into the fabric of reality itself, affecting time and perception in bewildering ways. Distorted time experiences. Perhaps most unsettling are the reports involving time near Mount Kailash. Numerous accounts describe physical and temporal distortions that challenge everything we understand about aging and the passage of time. For example, during a Russian scientific expedition in the late 1990s, climbers encountered Siberian mountaineers who seemed drastically aged after only days on the mountain. Their hair turned gray almost overnight, with facial lines and other signs of advanced aging appearing inexplicably fast. Nail and beard growth, typically slow and steady, appeared accelerated beyond biological possibility. Such rapid physical changes contradict known human physiology, which follows predictable cycles in growth and aging. These observations were not subtle illusions. They were stark and disturbing physical transformations witnessed by many. Tragically, some of those exhibiting the most extreme signs of rapid aging did not live long after their return. Healthy and relatively young individuals succumbed within a few years to diseases typically associated with older age. The common denominator among them was time spent near Kailash, a detail impossible to dismiss. High altitude creates dehydration and body stress, which leads to temporary changes in physical appearance. Psychological strain may alter how people perceive themselves and how others perceive them. The reported changes reached extreme levels because they required permanent changes that exceeded all available explanations. The increased aging rate surpassed all explanations that medical and environmental conditions could provide. The local Tibetan customs create a sacred element that enhances these narratives. They teach that Mount Kailash exists outside ordinary linear time. The mountain's pilgrims believe that their mountain circles can cleanse all their life sins, and through repeated mountain walks, they will achieve eternal freedom from birth and death. People believe that time operates differently at Kailash because it causes rapid advancements that change those who become exposed to its power. People who return from their journey describe a deep feeling that something important to them has been lost. The experience of time passing between hours and years results in an inner transformation that displays its effects through facial and skin changes. The mountain does not announce this trade. It merely allows visitors to leave changed, their bodies reflecting a profound disruption in temporal experience. The mountain's time disruption provides a fresh perspective about its ongoing battle against external forces. The Kailash area feels dangerous to people because it forces them to abandon their physical safety. The mountain exhibits strange behavior because it exists in three distinct forms: psychological, natural, and temporal. Some witnesses claim that clocks brought onto the plateau refuse to agree with one another after only a few hours of exposure. Mechanical watches slow, digital timers jump forward without warning, and compasses drift in quiet, stubborn arcs. Trekkers speak of brief walks that felt endless, yet ended too quickly to measure. Others recall entire afternoons vanishing between glances at the sun. Even routine tasks, boiling water, setting camp, preparing meals, seem to unfold out of sequence. These inconsistencies are difficult to verify under expedition conditions, yet they persist across independent accounts, adding to the growing unease reported by those who linger too long near the mountain's silent slopes. If time bends at Kailash, then all human attempts to conquer, or even fully understand it, face unique and fundamental challenges that transcend the familiar. Malfunctioning instruments. Alongside these temporal oddities are persistent reports of technological failures near Mount Kailash. Compasses, the traveler's most basic navigation tools, behave unpredictably. Needles spin without finding north or lock rigidly in place, rendering the instrument useless. In a landscape where weather and terrain already complicate navigation, losing compass reliability becomes profoundly disorienting. The unreliability extends far beyond compasses. Modern aircraft flying regional routes near Kailash avoid passing directly over the peak, as the area is officially restricted airspace. While reasons are rarely publicly discussed, stories circulate of sudden instrument discrepancies, loss of signals, and unexplained turbulence. Navigation systems designed with multiple redundancies suddenly giving conflicting readings strain credulity in such a volatile environment. In recent years, drones sent near Kailash to capture footage or gather data almost invariably fail prematurely. Many lose signal and plummet from the sky without identifiable reasons. Others return corrupted or garbled video before shutting down entirely. Batteries drain unusually fast, and stabilization systems collapse without structural damage. Engineers inspecting these devices often find no external cause for failure. Weather near the mountain adds to the confusion. Conditions change abruptly. Clear skies can give way to blinding whiteouts within minutes. Snowfall is so thick and dense, it erases depth perception and distance. This sudden volatility compounds the sense that control is slipping from travelers and machines alike. What ties these failures together is a profound loss of control. Pilots rely on instruments to fly safely. Climbers depend on tools to navigate unforgiving terrain. When these systems falter simultaneously and persistently, natural challenges become overwhelming. There may be no direct threat, but the environment shuts down the very means humans use to assert mastery over it. Skeptics point to familiar explanations. Magnetic anomalies and unpredictable high-altitude weather are well documented worldwide. Electronics often function poorly in cold, thin air. Yet while these factors occur sporadically in many places, near Kailash, they seem layered, persistent, and unusually coordinated. The pattern appears more than coincidence. When technology ceases to make sense, human resistance grows stronger. With no reliable instruments, the choice to retreat becomes almost instinctual. The mountain's power is in removing certainty, not through violence, but by quietly eroding trust in the familiar. Whatever force is at work requires no belief or ritual to be effective. It only requires proximity, making the mountain's influence subtle but absolute. Field radios have also been reported to emit sudden bursts of static in otherwise calm atmospheric conditions, cutting off communication at critical moments. GPS units lose satellite lock despite clear skies, while altimeters fluctuate wildly without corresponding changes in elevation. Headlamps flicker even with fresh batteries installed minutes earlier. Temperature sensors spike or drop without environmental cause. These disruptions are rarely dramatic on their own, but together they form a pattern of quiet instability. Each malfunction introduces hesitation. Each hesitation compounds uncertainty, until simple decisions feel risky. The environment begins to dictate movement not through visible force, but through an invisible dismantling of trust in dependable systems. The disorienting failures of instruments prepare the mind for a confrontation with something far larger than the physical mountain itself. Strange lakes and landscape. Near Mount Kailash lie two lakes that present a striking and unsettling contrast. Lake Manasaravar is calm, crystal clear, and fresh, holding the sky's reflection like a flawless mirror even at extreme altitude. Its surface resists freezing when many surrounding waters lock into ice, remaining smoothly reflective while winds brush overhead. In stark opposition, the neighboring Rakshastal is restless and saline, its water constantly disturbed as though something unseen churns beneath. Standing between these two lakes is like crossing a hidden boundary. Witnesses at night report seeing small points of light drifting independently across Manasaravar's surface, lights that move on their own rather than simply reflecting stars. The lake's color changes almost daily, shifting through blues, greens, and sometimes even reds, as if responding to some invisible force. This deliberate appearance leaves observers with an eerie sense of an intelligence or energy at work beneath the tranquility. The paths pilgrims take around the lakes add to the mystery.
Let's now talk about Kailash. Mansarovar is a lake shrouded in myth and mystery.
They often find trails fading and reappearing unpredictably, with roots and stones that seem solid one day and missing the next. There is no clear scientific explanation of erosion or landslide causing this inconsistency. Instead, the land feels like it quietly refuses to remain stable, subtly encouraging doubt rather than panic in those who walk its circuits. The mountain's southern face creates shadow patterns that produce straight intersecting lines, which extend across the snow and stone until they fade away. The formations exist for believers who see them as sacred, while skeptics view them as random events that happen to create light illusions. The natural phenomena in this location create an experience that stays with people because everything they encounter here remains more complex than they can understand. The two lakes represent two opposite yet essential fundamental elements that exist together in perfect harmony. The first lake presents a state of peace, which brings forth transparent water, while the second lake creates an environment that hides its inner secrets through its dynamic movement. Fresh things create a response to salt, while chaos remains uncontrollable despite all attempts to control it. The two opposing forces exist together at a point where their presence shows no signs of merging, yet they succeed in sustaining an unpredictable equilibrium which people cannot anticipate. People who come to visit stay longer than their intended time because they need to finish their visit, but they feel that their departure remains incomplete. The photographs fail to show how the scene leaves its permanent impression on memory, and the sounds produce an unusual effect, which makes them reach the listener after the normal time or in a distorted manner through the water. Silence exists as a complex entity that develops multiple layers that create an effect that makes it seem like sounds have never completely disappeared from the environment. Travelers who leave at last take no certain answer home with them. The lakes function as permanent entities that maintain their original state while standing in opposition to one another because they contain a fundamental contradiction that will never be solved. The powerful force exists independently of human understanding, which people desire to acquire as their knowledge of everything begins to grow. The mysterious equilibrium that exists in the natural landscape creates an extended, mystical atmosphere throughout the entire mountain area, which invites people to think about it, while providing no means to reach a final answer. Seasonal winds carry fine mineral dust from one shoreline to the other. Yet, the chemical balance of each lake remains unchanged year after year. Ice forms unevenly along Rakshastal's edges, while Manasaravar's center stays liquid under similar conditions. Waves on one surface rise without matching wind patterns, while the other lies undisturbed beneath the same sky. Even migrating birds appear to circle one lake but avoid the next entirely. These subtle contrasts accumulate over time, turning ordinary observation into quiet doubt. The terrain between them feels transitional rather than fixed, as though the landscape itself resists settling into a single stable state. From this living paradox of water and earth, attention naturally turns back to the mountain itself, whose perfect form raises questions as profound as the lake's enigmas. Symmetry and geometry. Mount Kailash's shape is unlike most Himalayan peaks. Its four steep faces descend toward the cardinal directions with a near-perfect symmetry that appears measured rather than shaped by random erosion. In a mountain range forged by chaotic tectonic forces and relentless weathering, this kind of order feels unusual, almost deliberate. Such geometric precision challenges casual assumptions about natural formation. Mountains like the Matterhorn in Switzerland and Alpamayo in Peru may appear sharply defined from afar, but their symmetry breaks down upon closer inspection. Kailash, however, maintains its form consistently from multiple perspectives. Aerial imagery reinforces this impression, revealing balanced proportions rare for a structure formed by natural geological forces alone. The mountain's vertical relief extends thousands of meters above the plateau, dwarfing famous human constructions. For perspective, the Great Pyramid of Giza stands around 146 meters tall, a monument of absolute precision. Kailash rises far higher, a scale that amplifies the mystery. Although comparing a natural peak to a human-made pyramid may seem uncomfortable, the analogy highlights why observers are compelled to ask deeper questions. Geologists explain Kailash as a pyramidal peak formed by glaciers carving from multiple directions. Layered sedimentary rock can fracture along nearly straight lines, producing edges that might resemble architecture. From this view, Kailash is not unique, only impressively preserved given the right environmental conditions. Nature, given enough time, can sculpt remarkable forms without intentional design. Yet even geologists acknowledge that the combination of symmetry, orientation, and preservation places Kailash in a small and intriguing category. It is one of very few mountains globally that display consistent geometric form from every vantage point. The question it poses is carefully framed. Is this natural anomaly simply rare, or does it signify something more? No definitive conclusion is required. Kailash does not need to be an artificial structure to be anomalous. It only needs to resist straightforward classification. Visitors often feel caught between explanations, unsatisfied by either pure natural origin or intentional design. The mountain itself does not reveal its secrets. It merely exists, inviting interpretation without confirmation. This profound stillness and geometry deepen the sense that Mount Kailash is not just a physical presence, but a symbol of something greater. It marks a boundary between what can be understood and what must remain mysterious. The mountain's perfect form contrasts beautifully with the unsettling failure of instruments and shifting landscapes, all pointing toward a powerful, inexplicable presence. Light striking the summit at low angles creates sharp dividing lines that remain visible longer than expected, even as shadows shift across nearby ridges. Snow accumulates evenly along opposing faces, resisting the asymmetry seen on neighboring peaks shaped by the same winds. Melt patterns trace straight channels that appear briefly, then vanish with changing temperatures. From certain distances, the summit's edges seem to align with horizon lines that do not match surrounding terrain. These details are subtle, yet persistent. Over time, repeated observations build a quiet impression of order within randomness, encouraging the sense that familiar geological processes alone may not fully explain the mountain's enduring form. The mountain's spiritual role and symbolic position as an axis where worlds meet add another layer to this enigmatic reality. The mountain as axis mundi. For many cultures, Mount Kailash is not just a mountain, but the very center of existence, a cosmic axis where different realms converge. Ancient traditions describe it as a point where the heavens, the earth, and the underworld meet, a vertical link that holds the universe together. This concept of an axis mundi is echoed across diverse spiritual beliefs, emphasizing Kailash's role beyond physical geography. In Hinduism, Kailash is revered as the earthly abode of Shiva, the powerful deity representing both destruction and renewal. Shiva is envisioned not as a distant ruler, but seated in stillness atop the mountain, embodying cosmic balance. This association gives the mountain profound spiritual weight, making it a symbol of transformation and eternal cycles. Buddhist traditions view Kailash as the mandala of Demchok, representing ultimate bliss and enlightenment. For Buddhists, the mountain is more than a landmark. It is a sacred symbol encapsulating the journey towards spiritual awakening. The sanctity of the site reinforces the idea that Kailash is a place where earthly and divine realities merge. The Bon religion, indigenous to Tibet, also holds Kailash as sacred, marking it as the site where their first teacher attained liberation. Though differing in narrative and practice, these spiritual perspectives converge on Kailash's significance as a gateway to higher states of being. The mountain stands as an emblem of transcendence across diverse worldviews. The geographic feature itself shows evidence that it serves as a main geographic center. 4 major rivers of Asia, flowing in different directions, originate near Kailash, nourishing vast regions beyond the mountain's immediate surroundings. The natural phenomenon proves the existence of Kailash as a life-giving source which stands at the center of the continent, thus establishing its status as a spiritual and physical connection point. The combination of water and mountain elements creates a living symbol that maps out the mythical world. Some describe the mountain as the crown of the planet, borrowing imagery from meditative traditions that envision certain Earth locations as focal points for energy. The framing positions Kailash as the essential element that maintains cosmic equilibrium through both spiritual and symbolic interpretations. The mountain stands as a natural presence that shows how people connect their sacred beliefs with environmental elements. The mountain acts as an axis mundi because it creates a boundary that people experience through its constant presence. The site functions as a resting point that exists between two opposing cosmic forces. The main location links the physical disturbances that people observe around Kailash to actual events through malfunctioning instruments and temporal anomalies and shifting landscapes. The approaching mysteries create their own limits which everyone who enters the area must quietly respect. Kailash stands as a mountain that serves as a spiritual space where people can show their devotion through worship without needing to comprehend everything. Pilgrims who complete the sacred circumambulation often speak of a subtle shift in orientation, as though directions lose their usual meaning during the journey. Paths that appear straight from a distance bend gradually upon approach, guiding movement without obvious obstruction. The human stories and ancient traditions warning of approaching too closely lead naturally into the more specific mystical and cultural accounts that add weight to Kailash's enigmatic presence. Cultural warnings and mystical tales. Local traditions surrounding Mount Kailash are rich with warnings, tales, and mystical teachings cautioning would-be visitors. Across centuries, spiritual leaders and indigenous communities have emphasized the mountain's sacredness and the dangers of disrespecting it. These stories serve not only as spiritual guidance, but also as a cultural shield, protecting Kailash's revered mystery. Many pilgrims recount being warned by lamas or shamans before attempting to enter the region. These warnings often speak of invisible forces, unseen boundaries, and consequences for ignoring sacred laws. Some visitors recount that ignoring such advice leads to misfortune, sickness, or even death. These stories heighten the mountain's reputation as a place not to be trifled with. One haunting narrative involves a scientific group who, after being cautioned by a Tibetan lama to abandon their climb, heeded the advice but faced tragic ends within a few years. The deaths of all 4 members remain unexplained and are seen by some as evidence of the mountain's protective wrath. Such accounts emphasize the mountain's agency in dictating who may approach. Pilgrims themselves report experiences of subtle but powerful signs as they get closer. Shifts in weather, sudden feelings of dread, or an internal compulsion to turn back. These sensations are often described as more than fear, sometimes manifesting as calm resignation or gratitude when retreating. It is as if the mountain grants or withholds permission without a word spoken. Other tales describe mysterious disappearances or inexplicable accidents occurring on the outer reaches of the mountain terrain. While some incidents can be attributed to natural dangers, the pattern of warnings woven through cultural memory suggests a deeper, more intentional caution. These stories serve as a lived reminder of human limits before a place many view as sacred. Animal behavior has also been noted. Livestock and wildlife near Kailash reportedly behave strangely, avoiding certain areas without apparent cause. Whether these patterns arise from environmental factors or something subtler remains a matter of speculation. They add another layer of mystery to the mountain's domain. Local folklore often emphasizes the idea that Kailash is an untouched sanctuary, not a prize for human conquest. The mountain's inviolability is central to respecting its sanctity. This respect is practiced in rituals such as the Kora, the pilgrimage circuit around the mountain's base. where each step is a form of reverence and humility in the presence of something greater. The consistency of these warnings across different religions and cultures speaks to Kailash's profound authority as a place that resists casual or profane engagement. This collective caution enriches the experience of those who journey there and preserves the mountain's enigmatic power. These cultural teachings remind us that some places on Earth remain deliberately veiled, where human understanding is partial and reverence is the proper response. As the mountain silently commands respect through belief and experience alike, it stands as a powerful enigma, inviting us to consider what mysteries may lie just beyond our reach. The mountain's enduring enigma. Mount Kailash stands as one of the most enduring mysteries on Earth, resistant to definitive explanation. Despite centuries of reverence, investigation, and exploration, it continues to elude clear understanding. Its unusual combination of geometric perfection, spiritual significance, and anomalous physical phenomena creates a riddle that defies conventional science and belief alike. Those who approach the mountain bring back stories filled with contradictions. On the one hand, Kailash is palpably real, solid rock and ice, towering impressively into the Tibetan sky. Yet the mountain's effect on time, technology, and human perception casts it into a realm where ordinary rules seem suspended. This intersection of the tangible and intangible heightens its enigmatic presence. Kailash's refusal to be climbed or physically conquered adds to its mystique. Many mountains challenge climbers through sheer physical demands, but Kailash seems to resist for reasons beyond gravity or geography. The invisible boundary it projects invites respect rather than conquest, suggesting a purpose that transcends human ambition. The strange disturbances in navigation instruments and aerial technology hint at forces beyond simple environmental explanations. While magnetic anomalies and harsh weather do play roles, their layered persistence near Kailash marks the mountain as unlike most others. This persistent disruption strips visitors of certainty, compelling retreat even among the most experienced. The mountain exerts power over people who come into its territory through their strange time-based phenomena, which include accelerated aging and time perception changes. The nature of these transformations remains unknown because it is unclear whether they result from biological processes or psychological mechanisms or other unknown factors. The presence of Kailash creates a permanent transformation for people, which impacts their ability to perceive reality. The nearby lakes display this duality because they combine two opposite states into one unbroken entity that contains both peacefulness and active movement. The mountain demonstrates its overall theme through two opposing elements, which create fixed borders that extend into dynamic, unpredictable territories. Visitors to this site must release their desires for straightforward interpretations because they must accept that the site contains fundamental hidden elements. Kailash serves as a distinct cultural landmark, which is shared among various spiritual belief systems. According to this concept, life experiences death and birth all meet at this cosmic point. The mountain receives universal respect because it protects its sacred spaces, which require visitors to approach with extreme caution. The site functions as sacred territory, which brings down even the most fearless individuals. Mountains exist as scientific entities because they exhibit geological features and physical properties. The place exists within a state of tension, which exists between its mythological character and its scientific elements, which scientists can measure. The narrative of Kailash shows that human understanding space exists yet to be discovered. Mount Kailash serves as a location where everything known to exist completely disappears, while people experience pure astonishment. The mountain challenges all who enter to change their beliefs regarding the environment and spiritual matters and what humans can achieve. People should treat the existing mystery with high regard because it presents an ongoing enigma that will never be completely understood. Mount Kailash stands as a powerful symbol of mystery, where nature, spirituality, and the unknown converge. Its secrets challenge our understanding and invite humility. If you found this journey into the bizarre and beautiful worth your time, please like this video and subscribe for more stories that stretch the limits of what we know. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.